Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Science Podcast. I share this studio with my husband, who runs a company called Wake Up Warrior, and I swear, like every day, somebody on the team is like yelled at for using the podcast studio. But the funny thing is there's a schedule for the podcast studio, and the only person who doesn't respect the podcast studio schedule is my husband. So
I'm so sweaty that you just brought that up.
But what was the funny thing? You were like, we need t-shirts. There's what?
Oh, yeah. So on the front, it's going to say Garrett wants. And then on the back, it's going to say, but Danielle says.
Because his guys come in and they're like, you can tell they're like a little sweaty and nervous.
Like
and I'm like, I've already texted my husband. He's not going to yell at you. I need you to set up the studio. They were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
and then they did it really good. They adjusted the camera. I think we both look like beauty queens today.
You look great. I do a spin class on Mondays occasionally. And today I was going to do the early one at 7 a.m. And I literally woke up at 6:30 and changed my reservation to 8:15. I'm like, nope.
It was kind of a sleepy morning.
It
this
was
morning.
like usually like the weekend was beautiful and sunny, and I was like up and like ready to go. And like this morning, I was like, I want to sleep in a little longer. So
yeah.
Anyway.
So did you go to spin?
I did. I haven't showered yet. That's why I am in sweaty pigtails. I have a Sherpa on.
You look really cozy, though. I kind of want to snuggle.
I know. I was like, I'm not taking this off because underneath this is a sports bra, and I don't think this podcast is sports bra friendly.
It's not. I'm just kidding. It is. Who cares?
Who cares? But yeah, no, we're here at the studio. We try to do a show every week.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been lagging a little bit, but
It's been busy. It's a holiday season. I know. Who's feeling it? I'm feeling it.
I know. I was panicking this morning about my Christmas presents. You know?
Yeah. Danielle and I have fun shopping for each other. I like to spend her money, and she likes me to spend her money.
I literally am like, I need more ideas, and Katie sends me links. I'm like, perfect.
It's so fun, you guys.
This is great. But you're like surprisingly in the know with things, and I am literally like, what do they call? What's the phrase? Or like a chicken with your head in the sand? Like
Oh, okay. So, but here's the thing, and this will probably make more sense.
Okay.
I'm like OCD/perfectionist, where like I love to research.
Oh, I do too, actually.
Because I'm so frugal that like I'll be like, okay, I don't have a problem spending money on nice things.
Mm-hmm. But you still look for the deal, huh?
Yes, and well, more so it's like, okay, if I'm going to spend money on this, then it has to be worth it. So if it's, an item that costs $100 and I could get the same exact thing for $25 and there's no value in having the $100 item, then I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to buy that. But if I'm like, no, the $100 item is going to last me longer, it's going to do X, Y, and Z.
Then you'll pay the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's not
I always
just
research.
about the deal. Actually, I get weirdly obsessed with like hunting an item down.
I think that's why you like it when I give you ideas, because you know that
It's
I've
like a
already done the
challenge.
research. And then you're like, okay, this is what Katie
challenge.
said. Let me see if I can find one better. And then if you do, I'm like, ooh, thanks, share that link.
Yeah, I get obsessive. Like I get an idea in my head about something and I like literally like get down the Google rabbit search.
Yeah.
But then I'm like so proud of myself. I'm like, I found it. 3 hours later, that was a waste of my time, but I found it.
Yeah, new insight into our not work life. A week ago, we were at a baby shower for our salon manager, Crystal, and Danielle and I are there in the corner, and I'm like, hey, girl, I got this new white chicken chili recipe that it slaps. It smacks. I don't know which word it is.
And then kind of dirty.
Danielle's, well, it's like what the kids say now.
Oh, okay.
And then Danielle's like, ooh, my mom has a really good. I'm like, I'm sure she does. I'm like, you want to compare recipes? So anyways.
That's how our brains work. I like to take recipes, though, and combine them. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. So, it is what it is.
It's true.
But so every week we try to talk about something that's relevant, like in the hair industry or just in life in general as an entrepreneur, a woman, a business owner, like just life. And I'm going to have Katie bring us in on this topic because she was like, hey, we're going to talk about gaslighting. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I actually know what the term gaslighting means. So she looked it up and she's going to read it to you.
Okay, so and here's where this came from. This morning, I'm driving my daughter to school and the radio's on, which is not normally on. And they're like, hey, Merriam-Webster's dictionary word of the year for 2022 is gaslighting. And I literally went, huh? And my daughter was like, what, mama? And I was like, oh, nothing, sweetie. Like, you're not going to get it. But I, too, felt the same way about the word. So I Googled it so that I could just read it.
Were you like, what does that mean?
Well, no. So how many of you have heard the word gaslighting?
Yeah,
and
I have.
You kind of think you know what it means, and you know it's not a good thing, but you don't actually know what it means.
Right. That's how I felt.
Well, here you go.
Okay.
Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victim's mind. typically gaslighters are seeking to gain power and control over the other person by distorting reality and forcing them to question their own judgment and intuition.
How many do you immediately, like, for me, I'm always like, there's always like a person you're like, oh yeah, I think that person's doing some gaslighting.
No, it definitely pops up. And what happens to me is I'm like, oh my God, I was being gaslit.
You're like, I didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean, because realistically, like, that's what happens. It's psychological manipulation. So the person doesn't know that it's happening, and they're causing you to second guess your own thoughts.
Right.
So you're like, no, this bitch just did this to me right there, and then you're like, no, she would never do that. Look at her. She's telling me how much she loves me and how great I am, and blah blah blah. But I'm pretty sure she just did that. No, I must be crazy.
It's weird. Yeah, when you start to, it makes sense. Like when you start to kind of like doubt yourself, you're like, well, I don't know. Like I think a lot of times too, when that happens to me, whether I can think of multiple times in my life where I feel like that's happened. And what I do is I end up going into like close down mode.
How so?
I literally am like, well, I guess it's not like I'm like second guessing myself. I just stop talking. Like I stop communicating. And there's probably even been times in my relationship with my husband where he's very smart and witty, and he can be like very good with his words. And in the past, I would find that I would just kind of shut down and be like, okay, and not communicate, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to kind of get to this place where I was like, no, I need to kind of like communicate back to him. So, and the situation was like, he wasn't trying to manipulate me, but at the same time, I was shutting down and I had to become a better communicator. But on the flip side, there is people who truly like, there's no communication. It's just like a manipulation game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you know what I mean.
And we talk about standing in your power a lot. You know, that's a common theme that we have here on the podcast. And, you know, when I think about being gaslit, I just think it's like one of those things where it's an opportunity for you to like own your truth, 100%. Stand in your power, and be, what is that saying? It's like when you, like, confidence is your commitment to like your thought,
right,
or something like that, where it's like, okay, no, like you can continue to tell me this as often as you want.
I'm not going to believe it. Yeah. So it's like standing. It's like standing in your power, like you said, and not going into like this victim mentality where like I was gaslit, and you're like, but were you? But did you work on your communication? Did you say what you wanted? Did you let that person waver your thoughts, but then you didn't actually communicate back? You know what I mean? You kind of almost, it's like, did you fight back in a way?
Yeah.
So like standing in your power is a perfect way, because I think on the flip side of like feeling like you were gaslit, it could be that you honestly just kind of go into this victim role.
100%, because you're allowing yourself to be put in that situation. Right. And especially when you have that intuition or that feeling of like, wait, I think this is happening. And then you're like, no. You should have listened to that and you should have run.
Right. And it's so crazy too, because I always say like women, we tend to be conflict avoiders, right? Like, or we tend to be like people pleasers, but really we're just trying to avoid conflict. But the problem with avoiding conflict is it just becomes an even bigger conflict later down the road. So you can take something that you're like, oh, kind of feeling manipulated, kind of feeling gaslit, kind of like feeling all these things, like, and then all of a sudden it's like a virus that grows. And this something that could have been taken care of with direct conversation then kind of like snowballs into this giant conflict, right?
And story.
And then there's too many stories. It happens in all relationships, married relationships, business relationships. And then you're so full of stories about one another that you're like, we can't stay married anymore. It's going to be easier to just cut ties and move on and go with somebody else, whether it's professionally or like I said, personally. Like you have so many stories about each other that you'd have to like, it would be almost impossible to go in and erase all those patterns and stories. And at that point, it's like you have to just cut ties with that person.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have this theory for why I avoid conflict. Okay. And maybe I say theory, but maybe it's a story. And feel free to call me out on my story here. Okay. But I think that I avoid conflict because I have this deep-seated fear of attacking someone and being wrong. Like, I don't want to be like, Danielle, you did blah, 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 and like, I can't believe you, and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, you're like, well, Katie, it was actually X, Y, and Z. And then I'm like, ooh, sorry.
You're like, I didn't want to. You know what's so funny? That reminds me, so like one year, I used to be, I don't know why I keep bringing my husband up with this, but like.
Because you sent him a sweet message right before we came in here.
But there was this point where our marriage wasn't doing great, and he kept saying we should do therapy. And I was like, I'm not doing therapy. And then like a part of me was scared to do therapy because I was like, she's going to uncover all my dark secrets and tell me I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh God!
Yeah, like she's
no.
gonna tell me like I'm in the wrong. And actually, it was the opposite. She was kind of like, "You're married to this crazy guy, but you played a role." I was like, "I like you."
Well, and then that's funny because then you were like, "Yeah, he is crazy, but I accept that." So
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
We'll stay together.
And then I was like, you know what? I tolerated crazy. I didn't speak up, and I wasn't great with my communication. You know what I mean? And so like for me, that's when I realized I was like, okay, I was like maybe possibly being the victim in my own relationship at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was married and now I have 4 kids with him. I had 2 kids at the time and I was like, okay, well, for me, I'm not willing to just like cut ties. Like I want to figure this out for my family, for myself. And we've repaired our marriage and now we have 2 more kids and things are good, right? But how oftentimes are you scared to speak up? Because you're like you just said, you're like, I don't necessarily want to look like the dumbass. I don't want to be wrong. But but that's not really the truth. I would say I'm a conflict avoider. I used to be more so, but what would happen is I would just end up being like passive aggressive, like like when you're like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you like go to somebody, you're like, "What's wrong?" They're like, "Nothing. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine." You're like, "You're not fine." Like for me, like I can read people really, really well, and I'm like, "That's fine. If you don't want to talk and you want to tell yourself you're fine, it's just going to eat you up. It's not going to eat me up, right?" And I used to recognize that in myself. Like people would be like, "How are you? Is everything okay?" And I'd be like, I'm fine. Like nothing's wrong. Tuck it under the rug. Shove those feelings down.
Really?
Like, yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen you do this.
Because I have gotten so much better at it because I was like, I'm the only one in pain here because I'm too scared to communicate. And communicating doesn't always have to be collision, right?
That was good.
Like, but seriously.
No, like really, because it's so true. I'm the only one in pain here. Yeah. And I'm not communicating.
Exactly. And the other person might be like, I asked you, I gave you the invitation to talk, to communicate, to tell me what's wrong. And you decided, no, I'm fine. So now you're in this shitty space. And I hate that feeling. Like, it just, for me, it caused a lot of anxiety and I felt like I couldn't use my voice. And so, again, I was avoiding conflict, but I was the only person in pain. And so now I have found like, instead of that feeling, I feel that when that comes and creeps in. And instead, I'll like come to somebody and I'm like, hey, I got to address what I felt in our meeting last week, Katie. And I'm using this as a fake example.
You have done this.
Yeah. And because it eats me up. Like, I'll be like,
even this morning, you were like, why are you looking at me like that? And I'm like, no, literally, it was just my face. Like, I'm like thinking and I'm like making a weird face right now.
But if I didn't say anything in that meeting, I would have texted you later and been like, hey, is everything okay? Like, did I say something weird? Because then I would be in this painful space of like, oh, is Katie mad about something and this and this and this? And you're like, dude, it was just my face.
Yeah.
So now I've learned to like,
and then I would be like, why is she treating me like this? Why is she like all this and acting like I'm acting weird?
And it was because you didn't know you were making a resting bitch face.
Yeah. I actually think that's powerful. I used to not have a resting bitch face, so if I have one, every once in a while, that's good. But I've recognized too, sometimes you have a thinking face.
Oh, yeah. And I can't read it, and I'll be like, are you mad? And then you'll be like, no. And I think it's just your thinking face.
It's totally my thinking face. When I was a kid, I used to color with my tongue, like, so now it's just my whole face.
This is weird, but when I'm thinking, I stick a piece of hair in my mouth, and it's something that's so gross. I only do it at my house.
I've also never seen you do this.
I only do it at my house when I'm by myself, and I'll be like, I have a piece of hair in my mouth. That's so gross.
You also do this thing, which I love telling people this because I think it's so awesome. So
whistle?
Danielle. Yes, she whistles all the time, but without knowing it, and it's the greatest thing. Like you'll just be at the salon doing clients, and you'll just like
just whistle while you work,
and like she's so happy, and like, I mean, it changes the energy. Even when the energy's good, Danielle will start whistling, and then from the other corner, I hear Mary singing, and then I chime in, and I'm like it's just great.
All our weird little quirks come out at the salon because it's an artistic space.
It is. I have a question.
Okay.
Do you ever feel like you're avoiding conflict at work? Because you've talked about Garrett, you've talked about home. So do you feel like you're ever avoiding conflict at work?
I think what I'm avoiding at work is taking it to the level it needs to go, right?
How so?
Because I'll look at something like we're doing great and I'm like, oh, I want to do better. But it's like I almost like have this story that it's going to be like so much more work to like become better. Do you know what I mean? Like to advance in work or advance as a company. And it's almost like I feel like I could be more involved, but I'm scared to get more involved because I'm like, what does that look like for my time commitment, right? So I don't even remember what you asked me. You said, do you ever feel like you're avoiding conflict at work?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm necessarily
like, and specifically like how you said that you shut down, because when you were saying that, I was realizing that I myself shut down, and I'm a Cancer. So that's, known for Cancers to go into our crab shell.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't like, because I really am the type of person where, like, if something's wrong, I'll go into my little shell. I won't know how to talk about it. I'll feel stupid for bringing it up. And when someone, like in this situation, if Danielle were to come to me and say, like, hey, I noticed you were acting funny today, like, that to me is the greatest thing, because then that gives me
opportunity to talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it clears the air. And then afterwards, I'm like, why the fuck didn't I just say that from the get-go?
Yeah.
But then I'm just thinking, like, do you ever feel that way at work?
I think I hate feeling uncomfortable. And because I'm so sensitive.
That's so weird, because you make yourself uncomfortable all the time.
I know, but I hate feeling uncomfortable in the sense that, like, if somebody is sad or mad, like I feel I'm very receptive to people's energy. I'm like, I always joke around with Garrett. I'm like, I'm like, I can read your thoughts. Like, I'm like joking, but I'm like, I know what you're feeling. You can walk into a room and I can feel your energy. But I think sometimes I have a hard time interpreting because I feel that energy, like interpreting it, like, are they mad at me? Are they mad about something in work? But either way, I hate feeling that way. So I've become comfortable just like asking, like, hey, what's going on? Like, I notice your energy's a little bit off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could be my own interpretation, but 9 out of 10 times, somebody on my team's like, you know what, I'm frustrated at so and so, or they might be like, you know what, like, things aren't great at home right now. I'm kind of pissed at my kids. You know what I mean? But I think that in asking that, it really gives team members a space to talk if you want to talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And if you don't take that opportunity, then you need to move the fuck on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I look at it as like, I want to make sure, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, I'm like, if there's something wrong, it's going to bleed into your professional life. So that's kind of why I'm like, are you good? Is everything okay? Like, even last week when you're like, I'm feeling kind of shitty, I'm like sick, like under the weather, or just shitty? I'm like, is there anything I can do? You know what I mean? But I don't know. I don't like feeling uncomfortable, and I don't like feeling like, if I feel that energy in somebody, like, I didn't at least offer or say something. Like, for me, that's just kind of how I am. And it's actually I think I've had to learn how to be like that, being married to Garrett, because he is a Gemini and his emotions are so fucking like, woo, like high, low. And I'll have to be like, where are you at in this moment right now? Because your energy fucking sucks. And I don't want you to take it out on me. So what is stressing you out right now? And then he'll like go off, and I'm like, cool. I don't want to be in your space right now, but at least I know it's not about me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I'm going to hit up Target. I'll see you when I see you.
That's great.
That's what I do a lot on the weekends if he's in a shitty mood.
I have the same issue. I really don't like it when my husband, who's a wonderful, wonderful man, but I really don't like it when he's in a bad mood. Like, I actually hate it. And I hate saying the word hate, but I'm just like, we don't have the time for you to be in a bad mood, because we have 2 children that are looking at both of us right now, and your bad mood is magnetic. And it's the same exact thing with like the conflict or whatever it is. It's like, if you're given the opportunity to speak your truth and to speak how you feel and to really like have that platform, then take advantage of it. Otherwise, move on, because who are you punishing? Are you punishing your partner? Are you punishing your coworkers? Are you punishing your clients? Like, they don't deserve that from you.
Yeah.
I really don't.
It's funny. I just this last weekend, we were getting ready to go on a bike ride, and I was so frazzled for some reason. I was just like anxious, and I couldn't get my bike seat working. And Garrett looks at me and he goes, "Your energy sucks. You're not invited on the bike ride anymore." And he left me.
Wait, was it just the 2 of you? Or
no, we had the kids. We got like these new like kid seat bikes, and his carries both the kids. It's super cute. And he's like, "Your energy sucks, and I'm leaving you." And I was like, "What?" And then he came home and he goes, "You didn't want to go anyways." He's like, "You had mom guilt and felt like you had to go, and you were ruining the mood." And I was like,
true?
And it was. I was like, thank you. I actually wanted to like shower and like clean the kitchen. Like, I didn't want to go to the park.
Yeah, but you feel guilty for it.
I was feeling guilty that I wasn't like happily riding on the bikes and going with my kids to the park. And he's like, "Your energy sucks. You're not invited." And I was like, that's great. How many times in life can you look at somebody and be like, "Your energy sucks. I need you to leave the room"? Like,
I mean, but it's great. And honestly, it's the It's the opposite of gaslighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's realistically like he was using that moment to relinquish you from something that you didn't want to do.
Yeah, he wasn't going to manipulate me and be like, well, like make me feel like I was being a bad mom, you know?
Well, because he at that point had that choice because he knew what you were struggling with inside. He knew you had mom guilt and you felt like you wanted to go. And he could have used that and he could have manipulated that and he could have gaslit you and made you feel even fucking worse.
You know, it's so, yeah. And that's true. And Garrett used to do this thing too, where he would put in all this time, like, I think not just men, but like people do this. I hate when people do this. They're like, I'm going to do something for you, but it's in, I expect you, I'm going to do this so I can cash in on these chips later.
Yeah.
I hate that. I'm like, relationships don't work. It's like, yeah, it's give and take, but it's not like, you can't use it against somebody. Like, I can't be like, Garrett, you took the kids to the park, so now I get to go have my time. Or he can't use that against me. Sorry, he can't be like, I'm like, no, you wanted to take the kids to the park. I told you I could handle them if you wanted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hate when, like, specifically like with Garrett, but with any relationship, if somebody's like, I'm going to do this so that I can, like, have permission to do this later. I'm like, no, just tell me. Like, if you need time for you, like, just tell me. We can, like, I'll plan my day around you having time for you. But don't come to me and say, well, I took the kids to the park in the morning, so you have to take the whole afternoon.
Yeah, it's tit for tat. Or like even, you know, that somebody is like keeping things in their little like archive. Like, you know, they're like, they keep their little bullets. And they're like, okay, I have my bullets and I'm going to save them. And then I'm going to wait for the most opportune moment. And then I'm going to relinquish a bullet. I'm going to attack you with it. And then if that doesn't work, I have another bullet.
And then I'm going to make you feel bad because I have all these things stored up in my little magical bullet closet that I can manipulate with you and cash in. And then if you don't do it, then you're the asshole, but really they're the asshole.
Yeah. And it just brings me down to this thing where I just think, like, if you are someone who is gaslighting someone else, to be perfectly honest, I think that you are completely insecure and that you are trying to deflect from your own issues and your own insecurities by attacking others.
But somebody who is gaslighting, they would never admit that.
No.
They would never.
They're too insecure. No, that's the whole point.
They'd never be like, they would,
I'm sorry I gaslit you.
Yeah,
will you forgive me?
Like, yeah, I'm like, there somebody who gaslights other people, they would be like, oh, well, that's definitely not me. But if you're
being gaslit,
I'm trying to think honestly. I'm like, have I gaslit somebody? But I don't think I'm a manipulative person. I don't enjoy that.
I don't think you're a manipulative person either.
Yeah, I'm like,
if anything, I've watched you be gaslit.
And
when it was happening, I was like this. Because again, I can't control my face.
No, but I know what you mean. Like, I think I try to give people the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. So I have been burned a lot inside of my career. And
I've watched it.
Yeah, you've been with me a lot. I've had like salon walkouts. I've just had a lot to where I'm like, I feel like I'm a nice person, but it's dinged my trust in people, honestly.
Yeah. It's interesting because, Danielle, you have so much respect for your team and so much respect for the process. And regardless of whether you're on vacation and you're coming back and you're like, you have all these ideas, like you will always say, like, I'm going to throw this out there and, like, I don't know how it affects everything else. So take it if you want, don't take it if you want. And then, like, this morning in the meeting, like, I was like, okay, am I going to, like, sugarcoat my response to her right now?
No,
or am
and
I just going to tell her what I think the
Yeah.
problems
Yeah.
in what she's saying are? And then I'm like, no, I'm just going to tell her because it's not from a negative place. I just want to show her what the possible problems are so that she can tell me if she sees a different possibility.
And that's what that is such a strength inside your team, you guys. Here's the thing, I want to be a leader. I don't want to be the queen. Everyone's like, the queen. The queen says what she wants and nobody questions what she says. A good leader listens to feedback from her team and applies it, right? So I'm like, I don't want to be the queen. I want to be a leader, which means I need you to tell me if you see a problem. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to stroke my ego and be like, your idea is the best. I'm like, my idea is good, but it can't be the best if I don't have a full scope of everything that's going on. And the size of my company and what we're doing, there's no fucking way that I could have a full scope of everything going on. Yeah. So if I wanted control over my company, if I wanted to manipulate the people that work for me, I would shoot down their ideas and say, only my ideas work. But that's how a company stays stagnant. And we've had issues with that in the past. And I've had to let go of people in my company that I felt like were making things stagnant. Because as a leader, I knew that was the choice that I had to make. And leaders make tough choices.
Yeah.
Queens can sit back and be the boss, but the leader of the pack is the one that makes those tough choices. And it's hard.
It is.
But it's like, I can't, like I said, like I have to, if you don't respect your teams, you can only grow so far because you're just looking to be in the spotlight. You're not looking to grow anymore.
It's so true.
But yeah.
And it doesn't, I mean, I've seen it in different ways. And just like you were just talking about control, and it just, again, goes back to that manipulation. If you are on a team of people and you feel the need to control every single thing that's happening around you, within your team, within your product offering or whatever, then maybe ask yourself, what is it that you're truly hiding? What is the insecurity? Right. And you don't have to tell anyone. And if you're thinking, fuck you, Katie, I'm not insecure, then okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. But if you actually want to grow and develop as a person, and you're feeling the need to control everything, whether it's in your business or your personal life, maybe you should ask yourself why.
Yeah. That was actually one of the hardest things for me. I would say I am a little bit of a control freak, not in the sense that I want to manipulate people, but I'm like, it's my idea. I want to control. No, but I said this, and now I'm taking personal offense because you don't like my idea. Like I used to be that way. And honestly, when I brought Garrett in like 5 years ago, he stepped into my company for a couple years. He helped kind of get events and things like that going and moving it off the ground. And I had a really hard time letting go. He'd be like, hey, we're going to do the event this way. Okay, we're going to do the copy this way. And I was like, that's not me. That doesn't fit my brand. I don't know. And part of me kind of had to like, just like surrender because it was always a fight with him and I. And he's like, I can't help you if you don't want to be helped.
And if you don't relinquish control.
Yeah. And so I kind of like stepped out, right? And then he got really, really busy with Warrior. And he was at this point where he was really stressed out. And he's like, take back your kingdom. Like take it back. He was like going to burn it to the ground, and I could see it. And I stepped in with Jeff and some of our other people in the company, and I was like, show me what's going on. And I was like, oh, we can't keep doing any of that shit. You know what I mean? And I had to come back in. It was important for me to like let go of that control. It taught me so much in that season. But then I knew I had to come back in and be still like not like totally out of the loop, right? Like I still wanted to be a part of the creative process as far as like, what does our marketing look like? What does our email campaign look like? What does the voice of my company sound like? Because it was starting to sound like a Warrior hair cult. And it was great, but it also, I was like, it is me, but it's not. Like it's Garrett, right?
Yeah.
The company became Garrett's voice, and I didn't really, although like I loved his ideas and I saw a lot, it was always my vision. And he was like, take back your vision. And I was like, okay. But it was like important for me to kind of like let go and understand like letting go does not mean checking out. And that's what I did is I kind of checked out. You know what I mean? So now I try to balance. I think that's why I have respect for my teams is because I'm like, listen, I'm here, and that's why I'm always like, do you guys need more from me? What do you need? Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm like, I'm not going to completely check out. But it was a while. Like you really can't grow if you can't completely like kind of let go. Garrett, sorry, and I keep talking about Garrett's like, I want to be you when you grow up. He's like, I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, this is yesterday. He goes, literally, like you could work like 5 hours a week and your company is like thriving and like you could step in and have some good ideas and do more. He's like, but you don't have to. He's like, you can literally go and put in a couple hours here, a couple hours there, a couple hours there. And like, he's like, I want to be you when I grow up. And I looked at him and I go, Garrett, you need to let go. Your biggest problem is you need to let go. And we see it in the office here all the time, like even down to like not respecting the schedule. I'm like, Garrett, I get it. You're the king.
Oh my God,
but you still got to respect the schedule because you put people in play to set the schedule up for you and you're disrespecting your team by not respecting the schedule. And when I say stuff like that, he's like, fuck. And then he stacks it the next day and he's like, I really like you. That's what he says every morning. I really like you. I'm like, okay.
Sometimes we'll go to Danielle and we'll say, hey, we need you to talk to Garrett. And she'll go, oh, okay. You need me to talk to him or you need me to like...
sleep with him.
Okay, but you were reminding me right there of, it was like a really, really early episode of the Date Your Wife podcast.
I lied. I do manipulate Garrett with sex.
Okay, if you're in a relationship and you don't manipulate your partner with sex, then are you really in a relationship?
And honestly, women, I have to say this, that is a superpower that women possess, and that's the only place that men will appreciate you manipulating them.
Okay, I'm going to say this only because I know that my husband does not listen to this podcast. So if Please, nobody share this part with him. He doesn't need to know.
I'm going to record the clip.
Sam's going to edit this part just for him. So last week, I was feeling a little frisky, and he was on a pretty good streak of getting, some every evening, right?
Nice.
Then Thanksgiving came, and he pissed me off in the morning, and he pissed me off in the afternoon, and he pissed me off in the evening, and it was just like, oh, like you are cut off,
You're
like
cut
no
off.
more, like I don't need to tell you. I've actually been expressing to you that I'm upset all day through my actions and my resting bitch face.
You almost
and my
have to do that,
actions.
though. They don't know how good they have it. If they were getting it every night, they need...
That's what I mean. It was like 6:30 p.m. We're at my parents' house, and I'm like, it is time for us to go. We have blocked my sister in. She's trying to leave. We need to leave. And he was like, I'll move my car. And then he keeps looking at football,
all week,
and I was
Katie.
just
You were
like,
too
no
nice
more
all
sex.
week.
No more.
You got to balance it out where they're like, you got to balance it out.
Yeah, no, I gave too much, and then I had to
Gave
cut
too
it
much.
off. Okay,
that's
but you're
funny.
reminding me, it was an earlier episode, and you guys were talking about sometimes you lead and sometimes you follow. And it's not always Garrett who leads, and it's not always you who leads. You switch on and off.
Right.
And I think the difference is it's like, if you go into that with like, it's like a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. It's like, but you're always dancing.
Yeah.
And in the past, you maybe stepped out
Right.
and you sat on the sidelines and you watched him dance on his own. And instead, it's like, no, you're always a part of it. It is
Right.
fluid. You're structuring teams so that you can have, as he's going to call it, your 5-hour work week.
Yeah.
I mean, today you went in the middle of the meeting and then you came back
Yeah,
for the
see,
end.
she doesn't know.
You're figuring out how to multitask
I
like
am.
a mofo.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie.
But it is true. It's like learning how to do that dance instead of checking out or shutting down, especially for women. I think that I can only speak for women because I am a woman, but like I think women are opt to like stop the fight or stop the dance, and they just kind of check out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you have to understand, like even for like Garrett and I with that dance in our relationship, it's like I knew he was going to have a crazy couple months. He's been out of town like every week, and so I kind of had to step in as like the mom and like the coordinator of the home, right? So you kind of have to lean in when people need you to lean in instead of back off and close down, right? Because that doesn't help the situation. That just creates a bigger snowball that eventually just kind of blows up, and it's like it can't work that way. And whenever I find that I'm in an uncomfortable position where I feel like there's something I need to say or conflict, it's like I can say this now or I can let it build, right?
Well, it's like last week. I don't remember what you said led up to this, but your response, Garrett was out of town. He's had a lot of things going on, and we joke like that he's never here because he's out of town a lot. And you were talking about a story, and you said your response to him was like, yeah, but I also need my husband.
Yeah.
And like, I just think that that's really like, that's a strong, vulnerable place to be in, where you could have had a lot of responses. You could have manipulated him in that
Right.
situation. You could have even gaslit him, but
Yeah.
instead you just communicated
Nobody
honestly.
wins.
I also need my
Yeah.
husband.
And whenever I want, I call it jabs, right? There's times when I want to manipulate and I want to jab, and I'm like, nobody fucking wins when you do that. You just hurt yourself and the other person. And I
You
learned
just prolong the pain.
Yeah, and I'm like, I was guilty of that. You know what I mean? And when I recognized that in myself, it was a very powerful space to be in because I realized I was causing all my own pain by these stupid jabs.
So what'd you do?
I stopped doing it. And I came to I try, and I still try to this day, to come to, whether it's Garrett or somebody, with a neutral space of love, right? Where it's like what I'm saying, if I come at a neutral space of love, it doesn't matter what I say. You can feel that intent that somebody is speaking, right?
I literally believe this to my core.
Like I could say something and be like really mad and
Yes.
angry and in a space where I want to jab, or I can come into a space where it's like, what do you want?
Yes.
Like, what do you want? How can I help? Where are we at? And that's like one thing that like has stuck with me the last like probably decade is like, Danielle, how do you get what you want? And a lot of times I'm like, stop being a fucking asshole. Like, like
Come from a place of love.
come from a place of neutral love
Yeah.
and see what the response is. If the response is crazy, at least you came at it in this space of like not trying to win or manipulate, but like we're both hurting. So what's the outcome we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I've learned the hard way. I feel like I've been taken advantage of, but it's made me like a stronger person in the long haul. And now I can recognize certain things in people faster. And right now I feel like we have a pretty like solid team. I finally feel like we weeded out all the weeds, so to speak. And I just feel like we have a solid team. And anytime I feel like somebody is exiting, I can like feel that in them. And it's just kind of a place where for me, I'm like, as a boss, as an owner, if I feel that, then I need to let them go, right? Who on your team has been crying, please let me go, and you're holding on to them? Why? And I don't know. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like I have to continually kind of let go and look at the bigger picture. And sometimes, not sometimes, but that can be hard.
I think it is. And I think it's, you end up second guessing yourself. And I mean, listen, like when it comes to team members and people's lives, like you're talking about their life, like you're talking about their livelihood. You're going to affect them. So if you're someone who doesn't think about that before letting a team member go, then you are the asshole and you should probably fix what's wrong inside of you. But if you're, again, coming from a place of love, which honestly, like I think that that's how you build true lasting relationships in life. However, it also leaves you open to vulnerability. But then looking back on it, it's like, no, I had this feeling. I knew that this wasn't right. And I questioned it. And I questioned it again and again and again. And every time I questioned it, the answer was always, you're on the right path. Like that's where you know. And it's, again, so that, to me, that allows you to say, I'm letting you go from a place of love.
Right.
And I genuinely wish you the best.
I honestly, what I recognize in myself too is, am I operating out of anxiety or guilt, right? And if I have told myself so many times, I'm like, I refuse to operate in a space of guilt. Like I think that women, and again, speaking for a woman, I think that women suffer more with like this little bit of guilt, like whether it's mom guilt or I didn't work enough or I didn't work out enough or I wasn't a good, like whatever it is, we have this guilt. And I've come to this place, if I'm always operating in this space of guilt, that's not productive.
No.
Like it's not. And so I kind of get out of this
just stay
place.
guilty.
Yeah. And even like, say for example, like if I had like a shitty meal or I drank too much or whatever it is, like the next day I'm like, oh, I kind of feel like crap. But I'm not going to sit in this space of like feel guilty and then go eat 5 more donuts and let my whole day spiral and then I'm a shitty mom. It's like, okay, I'm human.
You're not a victim.
I drank too much. I'm not going to get up and feel guilty. I'm just going to get up and move on with my day. You know what I mean? Same with like, oh, I yelled at my daughter last night. Kind of feel like a shitty mom, but I'm going to go communicate with her and have that conversation with her and move on from the day and not ignore it and pretend like it didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't know how long we've been doing this, but I have to tell you another story and you're probably going to laugh.
okay.
So I dated this guy like 15 years ago. I don't know. I don't know how old I am.
Hopefully before you're married.
It was definitely before I was married. So actually it was probably longer than that. Anyways, I dated this guy and he got like really into fitness, and which is great, like awesome, good for you. And I felt like I was relatively fit at the time, but he started doing this thing. I was in beauty school and he would be like, oh, what did you eat today?
Oh,
or like, oh, did you work out? Well, like, why didn't you work out longer? Or like, oh, well, if you did these sort of exercises, like you would be skinnier. And I mean, I think I was 17. So like I was not mentally developed fully yet. And I didn't really realize what was happening, but here's what happened. I was like, you are basically calling me fat, so I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Oh, no.
And so I gained 30 pounds.
I'll show you.
And who's the person that suffered in this?
I was like, so you hurt yourself.
It was me. But it was such a big life lesson of being like, okay, I'm taking someone else. I'm taking their, like, I felt guilty about eating. I felt guilty for not working out enough. I felt guilty for all these things. And I was so overcome with this feeling of guilt that I chose an extreme reaction. However, honestly, I think my extreme reaction of gaining 30 pounds was literally just so I could realize that I was putting myself in a psychotic relationship that I needed to leave.
Yeah, you were like, I need to get out of here. It's funny though that we do that though. It's like, oh yeah, like it almost reminds me like a behavior. Not to say you were like a toddler, but it's like a toddler does that. Like, oh yeah, I'll show you. And
no, I 100% turned into a toddler.
I can always recognize. So last night, so Garrett drinks these feel-free things all the time, right? And they kind of give you like a little buzz. I don't even know what it's in. It's like kava and something else. And I've tried them. They're okay. I'm like not that into it. But he'll drink them in the morning, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to. That'd be like drinking a cocktail in the morning.
Like a tequila sunrise.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if I'd want to feel that way all day. So I asked him, like, in a space of like feeling like I'm not attacking. I go, why do you drink those like in the morning? And he goes, why do you drink your tequila at night? I literally was like, I'm not.
It's delicious.
I literally was like, I love my tequila. I was like, I need you to know that like I don't care. I was just curious, like. Do you like feeling like that way? Because I would not want to feel like drunk all day. Like, I was like, I was just asking. And he kind of kept like getting irritated. And I was like, you do you. Like we were on a Sunday walk and I literally was like, babe, you do you. I was like, I'm not having this conversation. So he stacks it. The next day he gets up, he goes, yeah, I'm going to stop drinking those during the day. I was like... he's like, I knew I was like feeling guilty based off of how I reacted to you. And I was like, That's why I decided not to be triggered that you called out my tequila. I was like, I'm good. I'm good with my tequila. I don't really care.
I mean, but that's really awesome.
Yeah, I kind of
It's
just
awesome
like
that he was able to see his own trigger too, because you were like, whatever. You're so
but I didn't
accepting of
feed
anything.
into it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I used to feed into it in the past, and then, but that was me feeding into, well, should I feel guilty? Well, maybe, well, screw you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I really don't feel guilty.
Or even like, well, why did you react that way? I was just asking.
Yeah, like I was like, I was just like, okay, no, I was just really wondering.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's fine. He like kept going, and I was like, it's fine. I don't really want to talk about this. And I was like, so anyway. But yeah, how many times are you in a conversation with somebody where you're like, you have to be very careful with your response. And you're like this too, where somebody will say something, and instead of to quickly respond, I'm like, is this going to give me the outcome that I want? And I kind of sit on it for a second, and then I try to carefully choose my words. Now, sometimes I lose my shit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way.
Sometimes I lose my shit. Like, usually Garrett says I have at least 3 massive blow-ups a year.
Okay.
One of them was recently. It was well deserved.
What was it about? Can you tell us?
I can tell you.
Okay.
He's been gone for like 2 months straight, like on and off. And then he comes back and he's like, hey, I'm going to be gone again for a full week. Then I'll be home for a couple of days, and then I'm going to be gone for a full week. And I was like, and I just let it sit. And then he came, I can't remember if I told this story. And then he came upstairs, and Ruby was having a meltdown, like literally like a 3-year-old. My 11-year-old.
Oh my gosh, but she's like so sane.
No, she's OCD. So she has certain tics. So she was sorting her laundry, and she goes, Mom, will you help me sort my laundry? I go, sure. And I start showing her the color. She goes, that's not how I go. I go, Ruby, if you don't want help, then don't ask me for help.
Yeah.
So then she's like having a meltdown, and then Garrett comes in, and he's like, he goes, what's wrong with you? Why don't you help our daughter? And I fucking lost my shit. I chased him down. Chased him down to the kitchen. I was like, you said I'm a bad mom. He's like, he did the perfect thing. He literally just sat there and said nothing. And then he was like, do you feel better? And I was like, fuck you. And then he's like, are you okay? And I was like, no. And then I walked upstairs and put myself to bed.
That's great though.
But at least he
I mean, that was the only reaction.
There was no reaction. Like it was like the worst release the rage you've ever seen. Bailey was even like, she was terrified.
I mean, mom guilt is such a real thing.
It really is.
Like that's the worst. And being a mom is the hardest job on the face of the planet. Regardless of whether you have other jobs or being a mom is your only job, like it is the hardest job.
It's stressful
on the face of the planet. Yeah. And I don't know if having boys is any easier. I have 2 girls. Danielle has 4 girls. Like I don't know if it's unique with girls, but I literally feel like they test every single thing about who you are as a person. And it's great because you learn the most about yourself, but it is the hardest thing.
It is so challenging. But I think too, and we can kind of close on this. I feel like our topic's been good, but it's like kind of all over the road. I feel like it is. I think that women, that's part of the reason I actually love work though, because I feel like it's very fulfilling for me. You know what I mean? But I love being a mom too. So you kind of have to find like what is your balance in being a mom and in working.
And every once in a while, you're going to be crazy. But as long as you don't become a manipulative gaslighter, then you're fine.
As long as seriously, like if you guys are listening to this, like I'm sure I've gaslit somebody not even knowing it, right? Like just ask yourself, what is the outcome that you're looking for? And that will dictate your response. Like the end. Like in the end, if you're gaslighting somebody, you're only hurting yourself. Whether you want to admit it or not, you've got some dark pain shit deep down that you need to just let go, like, and be free, right?
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that is to like really be careful about who you're gaslighting. No.
I think maybe it's actually just like do a Danielle and metaphorically chase Garrett to the kitchen and just release the rage. Like just let it out, see what comes out, and at the end of the day, like own your truth and don't be a dick.
Yeah, we're gonna end with that. In the end, stand in your power. Like no matter what it is, stand in your power because you really dictate. If you're happy, that's on you, right?
You create the life that you want to have.
Yeah, you can have all the things in the world, physical things in the world, and still be unhappy.
Yep.
I see a lot of miserable rich people. So it's like, okay, well, who's in charge of making you happy? You are, and the relationships and the people in your space. So again, closing it down with how do you get the outcome you want in life, being a happy person who's fulfilling whatever you want to do, whatever your purpose is, whatever makes you happy. How do you get there? Figure what are the steps in between? you know, and that's truly for me, like how I'm the most happy is because I don't ever want to put myself in a space of like feeling guilty or having that pain or not having that conversation. So I guess I value being happy. So I do the things.
So just be happy.
So just be happy. I do
But
the
you
things
create your
routine.
own happiness.
Yeah.
So go create it.
Go create your own happiness.
And we'll see you next week.
All right, you guys. It was an amazing episode. We'll see you next week. And we'll probably have a little break during the holidays, but don't worry. We always play a repeat every Tuesday. If you guys are really vibing with what we're talking about, we have an academy. I think there's just under 500 students inside the academy. It focuses on business marketing and sales for the artist behind the chair. Also mindset, because I feel like mindset is a huge portion. You can't just buy the software or buy whatever it is. You really have to shift your mind shift of becoming more than just the artist. And that's something that we preach and teach inside the academy. So if you guys want more information, you are a hairstylist, go to mbr.education to find out more about what we're up to. And we'll see you guys every Tuesday on a new episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast.